Welcome to the Holistic Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Keisha Blair, wife, mother of 3, author of Holistic Wealth, and founder of the Institute on Holistic Wealth. The show will showcase various experts in the key pillars of holistic wealth. Each week, we deliver the best information on how to become holistically wealthy and live your best life. Today, we have another special solo episode of the podcast, and we're talking about suicide prevention, and September is recognized as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, both in Canada and the United States. And September 4th to 10th is Suicide Prevention Awareness Week. So September is a huge month for mental health, as you can all imagine. And of course, this is a hugely important topic for so many reasons. So just before we go on, I just want to pause to state that the Holistic Wealth Podcast is sponsored by the Institute on Holistic Wealth, and the Institute's website is www.instituteonholisticwealth.com, and there's a range of courses and resources available for everyone who wants to live a holistically wealthy lifestyle and to do it step by step and build and grow. So just to get into this topic, as I mentioned, it's hugely important. Mental health is a critical part of holistic wealth. Building up our emotional asset portfolios is a huge part of a holistic wealth portfolio. And so we're going to kick off the month of September talking about suicide prevention, how we can all cope during difficult times, which is so needed now with so many people struggling. Over 6 million deaths worldwide have been caused by COVID-19. So you can just multiply that by a huge number, by hundreds of thousands, the amount of people who are grieving loved ones who are undergoing trauma. And trauma is hugely important when we talk about suicide prevention and cumulative trauma in terms of what people have been through over the course of their lifetimes. I mean, even if you were to craft and draft your personal trauma timeline, which I also train my students to do, then you can see how early it starts and how pervasive it is over the course of a lifetime. So just to start this episode, I just wanted to give you a gist of what the stats are, and they are alarming when you talk about suicides globally. And so an estimated 703,000 people die by suicide worldwide each year. Over 1 in every 100 deaths in 2019 were the result of suicide. The global suicide rate is over twice as high among men than it is for women. And over half, 58% of all deaths by suicide occur before the age of 50 years old. And so globally, suicide is the 4th leading cause of death in 15 to 29-year-olds, which is just alarming. And even if we zero in on that stat, when you look at the trends for Canada and the United States, it's just alarming. Because I think in Canada, it's the 2nd leading cause of death in that population. And in the United States, it's almost similar. It's just alarming when you think about it. And so according to the World Health Organization, suicide is the 4th leading cause of death among 15 to 19-year-olds. And it's just unbelievably high. It's way too high. And we've seen some very, very prominent people, celebrities who have died by suicide recently. And it's always just so sad. And of course, it's something that we all need to, be aware of and really help those who are around us who are suffering. And of course, for those listeners who are listening in who are suffering themselves, it's very important as we think about how we move forward. And so I just wanted to give some risk factors, some suicide risk factors. So we all know what to look out for. We all know what conditions make it more likely that someone will commit suicide. The general advice is if several of the following conditions that I'm going to list out occurs, nearly every day for 2 weeks or more, it could indicate depression. So feeling hopeless, helpless, worthless, sad, loss of interest in normally enjoyable activities, changes in your eating and sleeping patterns, exhaustion, low energy, feeling anxious, irritable, restless, physical pain without a physical cause, a drop in performance at work or at school, trouble focusing or making decisions, not wanting to be around other people, thoughts of death or suicide, so suicidal thoughts or suicidal ideation. Other risk factors for suicide include alcohol and drug abuse, a previous suicide attempt, a family history of depression, suicide or abuse, a major loss, a death, major loss of a relationship or a home, an event that causes shame, guilt, or disgrace, physical health problems like various illnesses, learning of someone else's suicidal behavior, easy access to the means to commit suicide is also another risk factor, or being impulsive or isolated. And so those are all warning signs or a list of risk factors. And here are some other warning signs that you can look out for those around you. Direct threats to kill oneself, looking for a way to commit suicide, for example, buying a gun or stockpiling pills, a focus on death either by talking, writing, drawing, posting online about death or suicide, listening to music or looking at websites related to death, having a plan for an attempt. More generally, the more detailed the plan, the higher the risk. Behaviors and moods associated with depression, as I mentioned before, changes in personality or mood, becoming suddenly happy or even calm or sad, neglecting cleanliness or appearance, or doing risky or self destructive things, giving away meaningful belongings, and taking care of end of life affairs, such as, making a will, things like that, which could seem out of place, especially for that person. And so those are some of the warning signs, saying goodbye to friends and loved ones. All of these things are warning signs, and the general advice is to take extra caution if a person exhibits one or more of these warning signs. And of course, there's so many resources out there. Suicide hotline, there's suicide prevention lifelines. And so if your loved one is considering suicide, call the National Prevention Lifeline. And it's so amazing. It's unbelievable how much we've all been through with COVID-19. So many people have died. On a personal note, even before I go on, when tragedy struck in my life, I remember, just thinking, wow, how am I going to bounce back from this? It was on the heels of, I had just gone through childbirth with my first child, and both of us nearly died in that experience. So I almost died and the baby almost died. And 3 years after that, my husband died suddenly from a disease that was so very rare. And I talk about it in the new Holistic Wealth Expanded and Updated book. And so when I talk about, plotting that personal disruption timeline, it's hugely important because I think there's so much grace we can give ourselves and give others when we look back at how much we've had to overcome. And so as we're going forward and we're thinking about, how to move forward when things seem hopeless, I can offer some tips, and I'm going to offer some tips for that. And of course, if you're listening in and you feel like you need therapy, therapy can be amazing. It can be life changing. So if you feel like you need to see a therapist, call up a therapist and, find one that suits you, that you're comfortable with, and take it from there. And to be honest with you, there's so many resources, as I mentioned before. The new expanded book, the new and expanded version of Holistic Wealth is also amazing. It's interesting. I've had to coach a few women who've come to me personally after reading the book, and they've said, listen, we struggle with various aspects that you outline in the book. Can you help coach us? And so I do that coaching program, The Art of Recovery from Disruption. That's basically listed on my website. And I've seen where people have grown from negative self-talk, imposter syndrome, having suicidal thoughts, to basically turning their lives around. So there is hope, is what I'm saying. There's hope for all of us. There's hope for everyone who feels like right now it's hopeless. And I'm here to tell you that there is hope. There is hope no matter how hopeless you're feeling. I know that sometimes it feels like there's nowhere else to go, but if you can just hang in there, put one foot in front of the other one, and just continue going. And so for the month of September, I want to challenge everyone who's listening into this podcast to make the month of September a priority for your mental health. So embark on a mental health challenge with us. So we're going to do our positive affirmations daily. We're going to journal. The Holistic Wealth Personal Workbook and the Holistic Wealth Book are great resources for the month of September. For instance, the first edition has 32 chapters, which can take you through the entire month of September. The expanded and updated edition has 36 chapters. You can double up any one week and go through the book to do several chapters. One reader told me that she's going through chapter by chapter because she's using the book as her personal workbook. And I want to challenge everyone to go back through episodes of the Holistic Wealth podcast that deal with mental health. I'm going to just give you a few episodes right now that you can just earmark for this month as we go through this mental health challenge together. And, it's great that we can go through the episodes that are related to mental health to gain lessons and tips. So the first one is that episode with Kirsten Powers, CNN senior political analyst Kirsten Powers, who's also a New York Times bestselling author of Saving Grace. I was just listening to that podcast episode just before I started recording this episode, and it's amazing, amazing lessons that Kirsten offers from her own personal experience of suicidal ideation and mental health struggles. And she does talk about, cumulative trauma and how that can affect us and just being aware of that cumulative trauma. And we need to do the work of trauma integration in our lives, because when we're not doing the work to basically become self-aware of that trauma and to deal with that trauma that we've been through, then it can be a spiral downwards. And so, that's one episode that I would recommend putting it on that list. And if you're writing a list of episodes that deal with mental health, then that's one to put on the list. Another one to put on the list is Coping with Mental Health with CEO of Bella Magazine, Vanessa Kopp. So Vanessa was on the podcast. She talked about her journey and her story with depression starting at 13 years old. She said she struggled with depression starting from that age of 13. And after she had her child, she suffered from postpartum depression. And in that episode, Vanessa says, and I'm quoting from Vanessa in that episode, I talk about mental health as often as I possibly can because I'm here to show people that you can overcome it and you can manage it and you can continue to live a happy life regardless of whatever mental health aspect you may be going through right now. I've struggled with depression from the age of 13, so it wasn't anything new to me after I had postpartum depression. And that's a direct quote from Vanessa. And so you can put that episode on your list. And another episode that you can put on your list is Coping with Social Anxiety and Trauma, including Money Blocks with Rebecca Weiner McGregor. And Rebecca suffered from social anxiety. And so she gives tips on dealing with it and also, working on mindfulness, breath work, meditation, gratitude, along with neuro linguistic programming, neuroscience, and to create that happy life and to deal with blocks and negative self-talk. Another one is overcoming imposter syndrome and negative self-talk, plus how to overcome suicidal thoughts with Michelle Quay. And Michelle on this podcast episode talked about allowing her negative beliefs to rule her life. The idea of loving herself felt strange. She was afraid to be seen and known. She suffered from a huge car accident at a very young age. So she's permanently disabled as a result of that hit and run car accident when she was just 11 years old. And so she's dealt with that her whole life. And of course, that caused a lot of fallout for her, but she's come out of the other side successfully. And so it's amazing what we can learn from others. And she talked about imposter syndrome in that episode because it's estimated that 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. And in the book and in Holistic Wealth, it's a great resource if you're suffering from imposter syndrome. Another great episode was none other than actress Kelly Rutherford. She discussed gratitude and overcoming life altering setbacks in her episode on the Holistic Wealth podcast. And for many of you who might not know, she also wrote the foreword to the new Holistic Wealth Expanded and Updated book. And her foreword was just, I mean, it was just brilliantly done. You know, we worked on it together line by line. And I think that foreword is just fantastic. She, in her episode, Kelly spoke about, just eliminating distractions and simplifying our lives to make all day a meditation. She spoke about overcoming life altering setbacks and regaining your power regardless of any situation. Because I know sometimes, especially with suicidal thoughts, we think, I'm so powerless. I feel so helpless. I feel like I can't control my own life, my own circumstances. Everything is out of control. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can regain that power. You can regain that sense of purpose and meaning in your life to move on. And so there are lessons that we can learn from each other. Another great episode to put on your list is how to cope with the naysayers with Lauren Ridinger. And Lauren recently lost her husband, J.R. Ridinger, just last week. And I just want to send my condolences to her and family again, because Lauren has been a friend and just an amazing person. And her episode was coping with naysayers. And in her episode, Lauren talked about overcoming self-doubt, fear, and outright paralysis that can be as a result of listening to those naysayers. So chapter 2 in Holistic Wealth Expanded and Updated also speaks to the whole issue of naysayers and how that can impact us, right? Especially when we're down, especially when we're at a low point in our lives. Dealing with negative messaging and toxic relationships is just not helpful. We need all the positivity and affirmation we can get during those times. So, this perspective from Lauren in terms of mental health is really, really, really important. And as I said, I referred to toxic naysayers in chapter 2 in the book. It's all about that because it traps us right into this narrative where we're afraid of our goals, afraid of our lives, and afraid of not being enough. And we don't want that because our mind and your mind is the most important asset you have. So you have to guard it. So those people who will bring you down or are giving you negative messaging and cause, that impact, that negative impact on your mental health, we have to limit that, cut that out completely because the mind is the most important asset. Self-doubt can be a killer, and most people find it very hard to overcome self-doubt. It's very important to guard our mental health. So when you have the right people around you, and you feel like you can conquer the world, and they give you that energy, they fill your holistic wealth bank account with stores and stores and stores of positivity. That's what we want. That's what we want. Now, there's another episode, How to Live a Fully Charged Life, with editor-in-chief of Woman's Day magazine, Megan Murphy. She spoke about, the trauma. She grew up as an angsty teenager whose nickname was Grumpy. And she discussed her experience with tragedy and grief, the death of her best friend, the death of her father to pancreatic cancer, and developing an eating disorder. And now she's dedicated her life to body positivity and healthy living. And so, as Megan says, in order to be happy, we have to do happy. We have to get up. We have to shed that negative thinking and move forward. And so those are just some episodes. I think we have about 20 something episodes. I can't go through all of them right now. And we also have on the podcast other women who've come on and talk about issues with cancer, issues with fibromyalgia, issues with other illnesses that also predispose us to having depression, anxiety, and suffering. So, in terms of tips to move forward, and I know we're almost out of time, but the book, the Holistic Wealth book, is kind of my Bible for this. I go back to it all the time. Chapter 23, for instance, prayers and meditation. And I have a quote that's listed at the top of that chapter from Albert Einstein saying, I want to know God's thoughts. The rest are details. And I know for me personally, one of the tools, the critical tools in my toolbox is prayer and meditation. It's right up there at the top of the list of tools in my toolbox. And I know for many of us that is the case. And I always want to remind listeners about that. It's readily available. It's handy. You can do it anywhere, anytime, however you want. And it's personal to you. You don't need anyone else to tell you how to do it. You can access it wherever you are. And so it's amazing that there's a whole section of the book that actually speaks to building your emotional asset portfolio. So it's build your physical, spiritual, and emotional asset portfolio. And in it there's a range of tools, in terms of our intuition and listening to our gut, that intuition that makes us make the right decision. Prayers and meditation, as I mentioned before, dignity and grit, spiritual self-renewal. And I found that for me, meditation and prayer, as I said before, are at the top of the list of things in my toolbox. The other thing, when I coach people and they mention to me the negative self-talk, which is a huge part of this as we look forward to how the process unravels in terms of negative self-talk and in terms of, suicidal thoughts. That's also tackled there. And it's amazing what we can do internally to work on our mental health and our mindset to flip the script. You know how it starts. You know how the script starts, how it starts unraveling, right? It starts at the scene of the crime, the tragedy, that fallout, that huge setback. And you replay those events again and again and again. And it really starts the same way. It's a script that starts, and there's a chance that there's an opportunity to nip it right in the bud once it starts. So once that script starts to play, just replace it. Replace it with a positive affirmation, replace it with a positive image. Keep those positive affirmations at the forefront of your mind and build that positivity and really think about and meditate on how you're going to build that new life and what your new life is going to look like. So not focusing on the past, not dwelling on the past, not playing the same script over and over again with the fallout and the setback, but really looking towards the future and thinking about, okay, I'm going to build this. I'm going to be successful at building this new life. And this is how I'm going to do it. So many people have done it before me. So many people have come back from tragedy. And I know I can do it too. And whether it's caused from a financial fallout, job loss, divorce, separation, grief from the loss of a loved one, a critical illness, whatever it is, or whether it's just been these cumulative things that have happened over a lifetime. As I said, it's great to be self-aware and reach out and talk to someone. And if you're listening in and you think someone else needs help, who's struggling with whatever issues, feel free to reach out. One of the best things that we can do during this time is to build those relationships and to reach out and to say, you know what, even if we haven't spoken months, just know I'm here for you. Just know I love you. And you can reach out. And I think during the month of September for Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, that's one of the challenges I would, ask everyone who's listening in to think about how they can reach out to someone else who you may suspect is struggling with mental health issues, because prevention is key here. And there's a process, right? It really starts off small and then it snowballs. So I'm, again, just challenging everyone for National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month to do the work that we all can in our own small ways, whether it's in the community, whether it's with your own circle of friends and colleagues. And just to remember and to keep this in the forefront for the month of September, that we're challenging ourselves, we're challenging each other to put mental health as a priority in our lives and in reaching out to others as well to help other people cope. I think that's the best thing that we can do. And it's a gift that we're able to do this. I remember when I felt like, after tragedy struck, I started to sit down and think, what is the meaning and purpose of life? What is my purpose here on earth? What am I put here to do? I just want to say to everyone that I know without a shadow of a doubt, once you're here, you are here for a purpose. You are living and breathing because you have a unique purpose and you have a contribution to make. And you still have that opportunity to make that contribution. And no matter what your personal story is or your personal circumstance, you can use that to uplift others. You can use your experience, whatever experience it is that you've been through, to reach out to help someone who's suffering today. And, when I talk about the motivation from within framework in holistic wealth, that's what I mean. It's easy to have those pity parties. It's easy to have that victim mindset. Many people, have suffered from it at one point or another. And so it's doing the work of digging deep from within to get that motivation to go on, to make that impact, to help others who are suffering. And so I think we're all together in this collectively, and it's the best way forward. And again, feel free to reach out to me at info@KeishaBlair.com. I'm here for listeners. Share this episode for Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. If I can challenge you to share this episode with at least three people, and then they can share, and then others can share. And that way, we're also maximizing our impact. Then please, when, tragedy struck, I didn't think for 1 second that I would be making the impact that I am now. But I think my life is a testament to the fact that there's hope and that you can go on to make a big impact on others and to help them rediscover their purpose and meaning in life and to go on to make a huge global impact. So let's challenge each other to do that. Share this episode, share another episode, if it resonates with you, and really think about others who you think. And I mean, even as you're listening in right now, just jot down the names of 3 people who you can share with or who you can reach out just to say a message, just to give a message of love and of gratitude for having that person in your life, because gratitude is another big part, another tool in that toolbox of how we overcome these times, these hard times, and the depression and the grief. Gratitude also plays a huge role in that toolbox. And of course, in the book, I talk about spiritual self-renewal a lot. And, the first part of the book is building that intentional life purpose portfolio. So many people feel meaningless, and that also leads to the spiral. And so having that meaning, building it back, is huge. And so the tools are there and they're available. Feel free to reach out to me. This is a special month. We're going to make it a special month. And I feel honored to be able to share this with you through this podcast, through this forum. And if you've been listening into this podcast and you feel so led, please consider leaving a review on Apple or any one of the podcast platforms. We'd be grateful for that. Have a great week, everyone listening in. Have a great month. Let's make this a month to remember for prioritizing our mental health as part of our holistic wealth portfolio and building that holistic wealth portfolio. And as I said, everyone listening in should have their holistic wealth portfolio that they're continuing to update, that they're continuing to work on. And so if you need help with that, reach out to the Institute on Holistic Wealth to help you build that. So have a great week, everyone. Lots of love to you all, sending you lots of holistically wealthy vibes for the rest of the week and for the rest of the month. Take care.
Thank you for joining us this week on Holistic Wealth with Keisha Blair. Make sure to visit our website, KeishaBlair.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you will never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. Are you a member of the Institute on Holistic Wealth? If not, what are you waiting for? Go to instituteonholisticwealth.com/memberships to choose your membership plan and join. As a member, you get so many perks. Free worksheets, advice, coaching, and a member's workshop to design an intentionally designed life. You need to figure out your life purpose? Take the Build Your Life Purpose Portfolio online self-paced course. You're struggling with all your money decisions? Take the free financial identities quiz and then take the course. You recently had a breakup, job loss, or experienced the death of a loved one? Take the Holistic Healing course. You need an overall plan to achieve holistic wealth? We will help you figure out your holistic wealth blueprint. And of course, if you want to start making money by helping others achieve holistic wealth, become a certified holistic wealth consultant. Regardless of what career you've got, the Institute will show you how to increase your income and walk in your purpose. The sooner you join, the sooner you start to achieve a more holistically wealthy lifestyle. And you're going to want to stay for a very long time. So go to instituteonholisticwealth.com/memberships to join. If you haven't read the book yet, pick up a copy of the award-winning, best-selling Holistic Wealth 32 Life Lessons to help you find purpose, prosperity, and happiness.